Well, today's video or project is pulling the flywheel off of a 1981 Yamaha G1-A2, and so I had to go get some bolts for my puller. I've used this many times for pulling steering wheels, harmonic balancers, just lots of stuff, especially automotive related. So I had to go get some. They are 8mm by 1.25 thread pitch and 70mm long. So the bolts that I had were too short, and the puller bracket was hitting the flywheel fins. So I've got it snugged down, and I did leave, the nut is loosened on the crank, but I did leave it on there just in the off chance that somehow that puller slips and maybe buggers up the threads. This way it's almost like having a, well, you can back it off, and then hopefully the number one, the threads will be protected, or when I back off the nut, it'll kind of fix the threads. I forget if it's a die, acting like a die. In this case, it's requiring a 17mm socket, so I've got it fairly snugged up. Number one, this bolt's snugged up. I also took the three new bolts and tried to insert those screw those into the flywheel uniformly. So probably about half the thread is going in, and I didn't probe to see how deep those holes are, so be cautious on not threading way in there. Ideally, I would have probably liked to have grade 8 bolts because I'm pulling hard, but everything's snugged up. And typically, and also yesterday I did spray some penetrating oil in the keyway, but hopefully we've got some pressure on there, or let me double check that. So let's go ahead and snug that up. And I'm just going to use it's a 3/8 socket. And to kind of keep things from turning, I'm just going to insert a extension and or breaker bar in there, and try to keep it away from the plastic fins. But so now I've got pressure on there, and rather than just trying to tighten that bolt and tighten that bolt and tighten that bolt, generally what tends to help is whacking on the end of this. Now, since this is an impact socket, I'm actually going to leave the socket on and beat on the socket, because you can see over time I've beat on the end of this and I've kind of crowned it over and had to grind it down. So let's see if that helps any. Kind of an awkward position. I'm left-handed and striking it right-handed. So let's go ahead and tighten it up a little. I'm not sure if this has ever been off. And rather than try to hold it by hand, you can just let your bar, screwdriver, whatever you're using, maybe just sit on the floor. Although that metal pan, I'm just pushing against the metal pan now, so maybe that's not a great idea. Wow, that just came right off. So a little even pressure, crank down the pulling pin, and it just popped right off. So that was a hell of a lot easier than I expected, or as I've seen in some videos. I'm kind of doing this project, or this side, because I am waiting for a puller for the primary clutch sheath. I have looked all over town for just a bolt that fits that the threading on the inside of this shaft, and it's a 14mm by 1.0 pitch, and probably, I don't know, 50mm long or 1.5 inches long. So part of my puller, the puller tip, is actually still stuck on there, which I kind of somewhat expected, because this thing has taken a lot of abuse over the years, and it's a softer metal. And in fact, it used to sit in here and pivot by itself. I did add a little grease on here so that it did rotate a little freer on its own and not just wedge in there. So that worked just slicker than snot. So those 3 bolts, the trip into town was definitely well worth it. And you can see that basically my puller has gotten some use and on how it's actually bent over the years. So, but otherwise, I saw one at Harbor Freight, for about 15 bucks, although their box didn't indicate which size bolts were included with the kit. And you could probably MacGyver your own. So now take the nut off, and I forget if that was a 22 millimeter nut. So here's kind of the first reveal. And just look at the crud in there. Hang on, let me grab a flashlight and you can give you a better picture. So you can see just a lot of garbage in there. Must be just a little, I don't know, I was gonna say out of balance, but you can see kind of the, maybe a little shinier spots. I don't know, I think those are the magnets. But otherwise it looks in decent shape. Let's take a look at the, not sure the correct term for these parts yet, but I know these coils in here, some people think it's on the stator, but let me put you on pause and take the camera off the tripod. So I actually expected a hell of a lot dirtier scenario under here based on some of the other videos I've seen. And again, if this has not been opened up in since, well, ever, then I would say things in here are actually in pretty darn good shape. So we'll go ahead and clean those up, and before I remove any screws, I know that I need to make marks to indicate, so we keep this in the same position for timing position. So I'm going to scribe somewhere to indicate where the rotation of that plate and in relationship to the crankcase itself. So surprisingly, if it has a bad crankcase seal, it's nowhere near what I've seen on other videos. But there you have it. We've got the flywheel off of this 1981 G1 Yamaha. Went very well. So thanks for watching.